Hello, it's Ruby, and today I am going to be talking to you a little bit about homesickness. When you go to university, homesickness is evidently something which can come up. It doesn't come up for every single person, but it is something that I struggled with, and I have got loads of questions from people asking how I deal with homesickness. Today I wanted to share some of the advice, things that I did last year which really helped me to cope with my homesickness. Very excitingly, this video is actually sponsored by Unite Students. So some of you will know that Unite Students is a student accommodation brand which is basically dedicated to helping students to be the most successful that they can be. So they really put students at the heart of everything, which is amazing. I'll talk about Unite Students a little bit more at the end of the video. So just to give you some context, before leaving for university, I was a huge homing pigeon. I loved being at home. I mean, I still do love being at home. Knowing all my family is in one house, it just makes me feel very safe. And actually moving out and the prospect of not being within that secure home environment had really scared me in the year leading up to university. It's something that I had thought about quite a lot. I knew that I was going to be leaving behind my family, all of my friends, everything I knew, my home would be all left behind here, and I would be down in university completely far away from everything and not knowing anyone, which is a really daunting thought. I know it's something that loads of people think about, and I guess it's quite good that we think this. It tells us just how much we appreciate our current homes. But this basically meant that I was more nervous than excited for university, because I knew just how much I loved my home environment. I knew just how happy I was in this environment that I had at home. And so leaving that and going to a completely new one where I didn't know anyone was really scary. So the first thing I really want to make a point of there in this video, something I think is really important, is that we are all on different flight paths. So I felt like this, and I really didn't like being away from home. But not everyone feels like this. Some people like the independence of being away from home. Some people are maybe more ready to move out, and that's okay. And I think that's a really important distinction that we need to recognise, that we're all on different paths, and some of us are further on that path than others. And just because when you're at university you're thinking, you know what, I actually really do want to go home, and others of your friends might not be saying that, that doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you don't have what it takes for university. I think that's a really dangerous mindset to fall into, because we just end up criticising ourselves, and that's just one more thing to worry about. It's okay if you feel more homesickness than, say, someone else in your house or flat. And what's really important then to remember is that it's okay to go home, and that some may need to go home more than other people. It is something that I was genuinely nervous about. I mean, I was daily vlogging my first 2 weeks of university, and I was planning on going home 2 weeks into term, which was actually the longest that I'd ever been without my parents, which isn't that long. I decided to settle on 2 weeks as the date at which I would go back home, and I was actually really nervous to share this online, because I thought people would say, oh, you know, like, you've only just got to university, why are you going home? Other people saying, well, I'm still at university, I'm not going home. And I know not everyone has the option to go home, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it intrinsically. The way that I treated trips home was, it was kind of like a booster for me. So I'd go home and I'd like rejuvenate myself, and then I'd go back to university. It would kind of keep my homesickness at bay, but I know that that might not be the same for every single person, because I knew that I had it to look forward to, so I could kind of concentrate on university stuff entirely without having to think about home, and when I would next be there, think about home comforts, things that I missed, because I knew that I was going to be back home soon. But the thing to point out is that actually that's not always the best way to do it. I think when you first get to university, you should leave it off a little bit before going home. And I went home after 2 weeks. I think in retrospect, that was maybe too short a time. I think I probably should have left it 3 weeks, because even though I did adapt to university life within that time, slowly over those 2 weeks, my homesickness went down. In 2 weeks, you form a lot of friendships. But I don't know if I was kind of settled enough in everything for me to go home, because you want to have a stable university life before you go home, and then you kind of come back to that and you can get straight into it. So I would have said 3 weeks for me. I think that if I'd gone home without that stable university environment, it would have been so much harder for me to come back, because I wouldn't have had any of the comforts that I had at home. I wouldn't have had like friends to turn to and talk to. Kind of play it by ear with that. I think it's going to depend on each person, but for me, I think 3 weeks would have been the ideal mark. So the hardest bit about homesickness at university, and this is something I have just touched on, but not everyone is going to feel the same. So some of the people you meet might not entirely respect the fact that you go home. When you say, oh, I miss home, they're like, oh no, I don't really, I'm okay. I like the independence. And it's really easy when someone says, you know, I like the independence, for you to feel bad about yourself and think, I'm not being independent, I'm not doing this properly. And again, that's a dangerous mindset to fall into, because again, you're just criticizing yourself. As I said, everyone's on different flight paths. Some people say about independence, you are still living by yourself in a completely different environment, which is completely different to anything you've done before. Well, maybe it is, it might not be. Like, the biggest thing I'm trying to emphasize to you is that it is okay. Like, it really is okay. I would recommend not actually calling your parents that much either. Again, it's just kind of, it's just reminding you of home, and it's reminding you of the homesickness, so you can't fully immerse yourself in university life. And especially during Freshers Week, there's so much to do. Don't get your parents to expect that call, because it puts you under that pressure. It means that you're thinking about it more than you need to be thinking about it. But I would say to text, because they obviously, it's hard for your parents too. And I would also recommend writing letters, which is something I did do for a few friends and family members. It's quite a cathartic way of like dealing with homesickness, because it's a bit like journaling, but you know that it's going to the other person, so it makes you feel less alone, but also it's fairly detached, but also it's reflective, so you're rationalizing the situation, so it's kind of a triple one. You might also want to just normally journal. So when I started university, I'd been daily journaling for 3 years, and I stopped daily journaling for some reason. I just didn't do it, and I really regret that, because I saw my mental health like completely going downhill because of it, and I think it would have been better if I had rationalized it through journaling. So I really recommend journaling. Try and find a friend who also feels homesick, and then you can talk with them about it too. So again, rationalizing it with someone, and it makes you feel less alone because you're both in the same boat. And then the very last thing which I would say, which is something I did mention a little bit earlier, but during Freshers Week it is so busy, so throw yourself into things, distract yourself, really enjoy it, because that's the best way to get over homesickness, to be so happy where you are that you're not thinking about the happiness back at home. Yeah, so they're all of my top tips for dealing with homesickness. I hope that you found this video helpful. I just wanted to share some of my own experiences, what worked for me, and so hopefully some people will find this helpful if you're worried about that next year, or if you've started university and you're struggling with homesickness. So thank you again, another huge thank you to Unite Students for sponsoring today's video. Unite Students is, as I said, an accommodation brand committed to helping students to be successful. And I know results day is coming up, so the one thing that Unite Students wants to emphasize to you is that whatever result you receive on A-level results day, and whatever student experience you have or you're looking for, you're expecting, Unite Students has room for you. So thank you again so much to Unite Students for sponsoring this video. I hope that you enjoyed watching it and you found it helpful, and I hope that you have a productive week.